Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name's John Lacey, and normally I would be talking about how I'm doing a show, but I'm actually not doing a show. I'm feeling a little bit bored, if I'm being honest, and I just thought I'd come on and go live for a little bit and talk to you and maybe answer some questions and look at some OBS stuff. So I don't know if there's anyone actually out there lurking, but it is what it is. I'm gonna mute that tab over there so it doesn't distract me. But yes, so that's a thing that is happening right now. So um, and it's funny. I'm actually not the kind of person that normally goes live in a social setting just to talk about nothing in particular. But I thought, what the hell? Let's give it a go. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do today, and again, I haven't planned out any of this, but let's just do a bit of screen share, see how that looks like. So I've got OBS open in the background here. There is a plugin, closed captioning plugin that I've spoken about, and there's a lot of demand for this, and I realized I didn't do a great job of actually explaining how it works. So in some ways, I feel like it's my goal in life now to explain all of this. So this is actually and I'm just going to see if I've actually installed it here because I have a weird feeling. Okay, so if you install this plugin, in fact, let me just bring it up somewhere so I can show you this one. So this is the closed captioning via Google Speech Recognition. So if you wanted to check that out, you can. It's free, and again, you just download it and you copy the file over to OBS and you'll be good to go from there. But essentially, once we've got this ready to go, hi Ender. Yeah. Unfortunately, the time zones are always a little bit weird, and they're probably going to get weirder because we've just had some daylight saving stuff happen. But thank you for showing up towards the replays. I really appreciate that. If you do have any questions or thoughts or anything you want to share, let me know. That'd be awesome. I'd love to hear more about how life is in Thailand at the moment. That sounds like a really great place to be. All right, so let's talk about this closed captioning plugin a little bit. So if you don't see it pop up as its own separate doc, just go to the docs menu and click on captions, and that'll bring it up somewhere. Normally, it'll probably default down here, which is technically behind me. So I usually just move it up here for demonstration purposes. And you can sort of detach all your docs. You can open and close them. If you don't want to use this one, you can close it by hitting that X in the corner. If it disappears and you want it back, just go to the docs menu and bring it back there again. But essentially, I'm going to try and answer some of the questions I've had about this recently. And first of all, if we go to the settings here, this will bring up a whole bunch of options. And it really just depends on what you're hoping to achieve and how this works. So first of all, captioning probably won't be enabled by default, so make sure you turn that captioning enabled button on. Then we actually need something to caption in terms of an audio source. So here is actually a really interesting example because I haven't set one up in this instance, but essentially, if I go in here and I'm going to add in my audio input capture device, I'll just call this one the Rodecaster. And then I can go and find my device from here. So I'll go Rodecaster Pro Stereo. Click OK. You'll see down here in the audio mixer, that's actually me speaking right now with this microphone. And that is the thing that potentially could be captioned. But also, if I come in here and I bring in a media source, so maybe I want to have a video, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to go find a video. I never really know. Not usually prepared enough to actually have anything ready to go, but let's just find something randomly. All right, so I'll go with that one. Click OK. And you'll see down here, this video is playing automatically. I probably don't want it to happen right now, but you'll see down here, we've got in the audio mixer, we've actually got the, yeah, cool. That's awesome. So life in Thailand is good. Working and holiday life. You certainly do a lot more travel than I ever do, Ender. So It's really, really fun. But anyway, so just, I guess the other thing to note about this is the audio mixer down here. You'll see that my video is sort of normalized and compressed. It's hitting the red pretty consistently. I'd probably click on the three dots and go to advanced audio properties. I'd probably bring that down in volume. I think minus 6 dB is usually pretty good. Actually, that was the wrong source. Do the video, not the microphone, because the microphone seems okay. And I guess the other thing to note while we're in here is we've got these different tracks. So we've got tracks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is possible to route different audio in different places. If you're a complete beginner, I'd probably recommend that you don't play with that. Just leave them all on. But for today's purposes, what I want to show you is if I come in here and I create a text input, and I'll call this one captions, and go okay. We could give this sort of, pick a font. Probably want some dummy text in here just to see how large this is and what it looks like. And I might even just drag this down the bottom here and go to edit transform. And just think about the bounding box a little bit. So I will go maximum size only, because I don't really want this to be any larger than it already is. So now if I actually go back into the captions option here, I can say, hey, caption the Rodecaster Pro, which is me speaking, or caption the video. And we can only really caption one source in this fashion. But if you want to grab everything, go and select one of these stream audio tracks. So again, if you've just set them all to 1 to 6, you've checked those all on, any of these will be fine. Let's just go with track 1. And we'll say, what language do we want this in? This is another question I got in the previous video. There's so many different variations of languages here. You can scroll through and just see which one makes sense for you. Interestingly, they have sort of an Australian version of English, so I might even go with this one as well. There's a profanity filter, so we can turn that one on or off. This is really important. So this output to streams only, local recordings only, streams and local recordings, or disable native output. Just make sure you've got this one probably to streams and local recordings, because that's where the magic will happen. And I'll do some local recordings just to demonstrate how this works. How many lines? I'm going to actually reduce this down to 2. I'm going to say add some punctuation. Normal English like would be good. And that's that. So in terms of the transcripts, we can actually save transcripts. So I guess the two basic things that this does is it'll save a file that you can use for transcripts later, or you can actually have the open captions, which are the burnt captions on your screen. So they'll be there all the time. So in this case, I'm going to delete what I've done previously so we can start from scratch. So if you did want to, and I'll leave this on, essentially here we can say, hey, do transcriptions for streams, recordings, and virtual camera. Save them as a particular format. SRT is pretty standard. Where you want to save them, file naming conventions, that kind of thing. And you can add punctuation. I do like this split sentences longer than preferred duration. I do like that one quite a lot. Okay. But right now, let's focus on actually getting the caption on the screen. So we need to go to Open Captions, the Open Captions tab here in the settings, go Add Text Output. We're going to grab our captions source here. How many lines? I'm going to say 2 lines. I'm going to say maybe 44. We'll try and add the punctuation and we'll be good to go. So now you can see it's not really doing anything right now. And the other thing I might do is just get rid of this dummy text because I don't really want that there. But now if I hit start streaming or start recording, again, these are buttons that are behind my head that you can't actually see, but trust me, they are there. I'll press those buttons and you can see that the captions are being written behind me. So that's really, really cool. And that's quite useful. So depending on how we did this, so if I go back into my settings and at the moment, you know, so this was actually stream audio track 1. So again, if I start recording again, and I'm actually going to turn on this video and we'll see if it'll transcript the video for me. And I realize you can't hear this video, but it is actually transcribing the things I say in this video. And if you are, this is just me talking about the Elgato prompter and the audio sync feature. So if you want to check this out later, it is on the channel. But you'll see that it's actually getting all the audio. So that was a question that came up earlier today, or earlier in the week, I should say. Essentially, we can caption all the audio. And again, if you wanted to get a little bit more granular, maybe you've got 2 speakers here and you only want to capture the 2 of them. You could just make sure that they're both on track 4 and then nothing else was on track 4, and you could actually tell the software to only do stream audio track 4. So that's kind of another way of working. All right, let's get rid of that video. So another really cool thing about this is that sometimes this is automatically generated captions, so it won't always get it right. It may have trouble with different accents. But the great thing is it has this thing called text filtering. So if there are certain things that you get that it gets wrong when you say them on a consistent basis, you can sort of recreate these. So again, I'm going to delete this one, and I'll hit the start recording button, and I'll say johnlacey.com. And you'll see that it's sort of taken that domain name and put a space in between them. And that's not really what I want. So if I go back into my settings, and in the text filtering options, we can come down to where it says add text replacement. And I can see, well, I can't see, it's disappeared off the screen, but that's okay. But essentially what I know is happening is johnlacey.com. And I want to change that to johnlacey.com. And I've even got the punctuation in there as well. So now if I start recording again, johnlacey.com, you'll see that it's actually put that together for me. So that's really cool. There are some other examples. So if I say build a presentation muscle, that's actually the name of my podcast. So it's capitalizing each of those letters. And if there is a trademark and you want to make sure that the trademark is represented on screen as part of those captions, for example, if I say LinkedIn, you'll see the registered trademark symbol there as well. And we can just look at those settings if I bring that up again. So again, whatever the software is telling you or is presenting back to you, and then how you want it to be replaced. So that is really, really cool. The transcript feature actually does save a text file of some description, in this case, a SRT file. So I can go in there, and I'm going to actually hit stop recording for a second. And I'm going to go find the file it's generated. And I've kind of already forgotten where it's saving these. So it's saving them in F video transcripts. Okay, cool. And I'm just going to open this up in Notepad. It's not quite what I wanted. All right. So essentially, this is a transcript file, and I know this probably doesn't look too impressive, but it's actually incredibly useful. And I think, okay, I'm just obscuring something on my screen, but that's fine. It shouldn't affect the stream at all. But essentially, and I don't know if let's zoom in a bit. So you'll literally see the words here. Interestingly, it hasn't put a space between johnlacey.com and the word you. So again, I might need to go back into those text replacements and have johnlacey.com space, potentially. But essentially, we've got these, and you can actually, once you've recorded your stream, you can actually go into YouTube or wherever and go in and edit that and add the transcripts. It'll give you an option to actually, correct those in some of the software, but you might want to go in and correct some of this. So again, it's a really great starting point if you want to, work with that sort of thing. And I'm not going to close this actually because the thing about Notepad, and I kind of mentioned this on the show yesterday, the new version of Notepad actually gives us the ability to leave files open almost indefinitely without saving them. So sometimes that is quite useful, and I should probably get in the habit of actually saving them properly, but it is what it is. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're watching. I know this is an unplanned stream, so I'm really just having fun with this today. If you've got any video questions or whatever, let me know in the chat. That would be really cool. But otherwise, I'm just going to have fun with this and show you a few different things. But again, I guess the big question this morning was how can you source, have multiple sources? So for our purposes, it's very much about the stream audio and the individual track. And again, if you're a beginner, just leave all those checkboxes ticked in the advanced audio settings and make sure it's good to go. But if you're a little bit more advanced and you want to get a bit more granular with that, you can actually go in and sort of send certain things just to track 5 or track 6 or track 4 or whatever and go from there. So that's really basically what this plugin does. And I know it's very simple in some ways. Although I think the other thing too, let's just hit start recording. And at the moment, this is interesting. Like this does bounce around quite a bit. So I might even see if I can go into my caption properties here. So this is just text source. I might even see if I can make this a little bit smaller. Let's say maybe 88, for example. Okay, so I've adjusted that. So it's a little bit more consistent. And it doesn't bounce around quite as much. So again, a lot of that actually comes down to the transform options. So if you right click on your source, you go to the transform, go to edit transform, and the bounding box type is the thing. And again, play with these to your heart's content. See if you can find something that works for you even better. But for my money, maximum size only is a really good way of working. You can decide how long and how tall that needs to be. You could potentially crop it as well. Another sort of nice thing to do, I find, is that if you actually want to maybe intentionally leave a space for your captions, you could even think about putting some sort of color source underneath this. So I might actually do it the other way. I'm just going to, because I don't really have any real sources on this particular scene, I'm just going to grab that and I'm just going to pretend that's a background. And now, obviously, the gray background with the white text is nearly impossible to see. So if I go in here and add another color source, and we'll say black box, and I can adjust the color. And again, if you've got the hex colors or, you know, HSV or the red, green, blue, the alpha channel actually gives you the ability to adjust the transparency. So you can make things transparent, which is really, really cool. I can go okay. And I could sort of, like I literally can just hold down the Alt key and drag this to whatever size I want it to be. But the other thing you can do too is in the properties, I can just say, hey, I want it to have a width of 1920, but maybe I only want this to be, I don't know, let's say 300 pixels. And again, I can drag this to the bottom of my screen. And I just need to adjust this because right now the, hey Said, thanks for popping in. I'm just improvising some stuff this morning because I'm bored, if I'm being completely honest with you. And daylight savings things have happened here and I'm just looking for something to do. So I thought I would just revisit this plugin because I get a billion questions about it. But essentially right now, our captions are actually underneath our black box. We want it to be the other way around. So you can either click on the up and down arrows to resize these, or you can just hold down the mouse button and drag it into position. And then you'll see that there. So it could be that maybe the box is still a little bit too tall for my purposes. I could make it a little bit smaller and resize that and bring it in. Might even make that a little bit bigger. Maybe 220 would be good. And the great thing about this is if you have sort of have a specific section for this, because the thing you have to keep in mind is that these open captions are being burnt into the live stream, into the video in real time. So if there is something that is wrong or misleading, you literally could correct it and then just replace this whole section here and just go into your video editing software and put something on top of it. And that could sort of rescue something if there is kind of an embarrassing mistranslation, if you like. So that's one thing. I'm going to stop recording on that one. But it is a nifty plugin, and I realize I didn't do a great job of actually explaining that one very well. So again, if you want to check this out, this is closed captioning via Google Speech Recognition, and you can find this in the forums at obsproject.com. It's really nifty. It is free. You know, it's not perfect, but none of these automatically generated things are. But I think it's a really good starting point for a lot of different purposes. So you can definitely check that one out. Just wondering what else I can talk to you about. Turn this off for a second. So again, this is kind of a very new experience for me because I'm not the kind of person that just goes live without planning anything. I'm a bit of a control freak ordinarily. So I would actually have lots of things planned and ready to go, which I haven't done today. And again, we're just hanging out, just answering questions, fielding comments, whatever. If you are watching, you know, you might be watching any number of places, but I did want to just shamelessly plug my YouTube channel. So if you want to head over to youtube.com/@learnlivestreaming, that would be really cool. I do a weekly live stream show with my co-host Sam Proof, the video and live streaming show here. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see it behind me. We did just record our 100th episode yesterday, so that was pretty cool. I must admit, I joked about one of our early streams only getting 2 views, and this last one has had a grand total of 14. So I don't know, maybe that wasn't the content you were looking for, but let me know. I'm open to any feedback, but we've covered all kinds of things over the past little while, including OBS, Restream, StreamYard, all the tech, but also some of the things that you want to keep in mind in terms of being a creator and just managing your mental health and the sustainability of anything that you're trying to do. Hello to Garen Belaney, who is literally in some of these video thumbnails. Let me scroll down. So he's just there. And he's been on a couple of different shows. So it's been really great to catch up with different people. And I have really enjoyed talking to you. It would be good to get more people on the show. I know Ender Trading kind of mentioned earlier, and unfortunately this is always going to be a problem for live streaming, is that the world is a large place and time zones exist, and a lot of the time when I'm awake, a lot of the rest of the world is asleep, and I don't really know if there's much we can really do about that. Like, it would be, I'd like to sort of experiment with some different times, but you know, it's just one of those things that I have to think about what will work for me and what will work for the audience as well. So that's what we're doing today. So yeah, I'm really curious. What are you guys up to? What have you been working on? Do you have any new exciting projects? I'd love to hear about the latest exciting things happening in Micro Studio, Garen, because I know you're always doing really cool things. And as much as I spend a lot of time on YouTube, but I know Garen sort of hangs out on TikTok, and he's always producing a lot of great content over there. So definitely check him out over there. And just going to add some comments via the chat bot. I love this chatbot. I use a Mix It Up chatbot, and for the longest time, I didn't understand the benefit of this, but now I can do things like put in a command into the chat. So this is exclamation mark Saeed Sadouk, and then I do that, and it brings up a message, and it says the facilitator Saeed Sadouk on YouTube, and you can go and follow him there. We can do the same sort of thing for Garen, although I know he's not as active on YouTube, but you can go and find him there and head off to do different things. So it sounds like Garen's headed off to Virginia on Monday to produce content for some clients. So that's exciting, because you're Canadian. So that's quite a trip, I imagine. I'm not great with the geography, but you know, it sounds like quite a journey. Saeed is saying that live streaming is still on his agenda. Yeah, that's cool. Again, the thing I said that Saeed taught me was, it's not really about the tech. It's kind of about how you use it and where you apply it. And lots of different people live in different contexts. And like Saeed does some great trainings and facilitation sessions, particularly via Zoom. But he's using a lot of the same OBS technology that I use when I go live. So it's just another way of working. And again, whatever makes sense for your audience is all good. Yeah. So very big trip indeed. Heading over to America. 10-hour flight. Oh my goodness. I must admit, I don't have the travel bug. I don't like to venture too far from home at the best of times. And the thing I tell people is I'm in a long-term committed relationship with my personal espresso machine, so I don't like to go anywhere. But that's quite a journey. Wow. And Saeed is planning his next OBS masterclass, so that'll be cool. I'm always really curious about how we, and again, if it's not about the tech, if it's about the results, like how do we communicate those to people that might want to use the technology? Yeah. I mean, take lots of little videos and selfies and stuff, Garen. I'd be really curious to see how that all unfolds. And it's who's looking after little Juno when this is all happening? Anyway, I get distracted by the comments sometimes, but yeah, it is one of those things because I know we talk about OBS, like it is literally this black box, and you can actually change how this looks if you go to the file option and go to settings. We do have different themes and styles, so if you want to try those out, it'll change the colors. It's only changed the buttons that are directly behind me, but if I go light, for example, that'll be very, very different. So they've got all these different options, and it's one of those things I tend to just stick with the defaults because it's usually what people are using when they first encounter the software. That's really good to know that Garen's dad is looking after the puppy dog. She's a sweetie. Yeah, so that's, it's one of those things that, it is very much this sort of black box experience. So communicating the benefit of this can be really tricky. And I've been working with someone recently who had been using a lot of StreamYard, and StreamYard was a really good product from a really good company, and then it got bought out. And don't ask me how I feel about it these days because it'll just send my blood pressure through the roof. But be that as it may, but the big thing for her was she's always in front of a green screen, and her ability to just sort of bring herself inside of a screen capture in the way that I'm sort of doing right here was such a game changer for her. And in some ways, like the technology behind that is really simple. You've got a green screen. You add your video capture device to the scene. You go in and sort of you go to the filters, and you can add a chroma key in. And again, this won't work here, but just to give you a sense of what this would look like, you've just got some settings. You go in and correct those, and essentially you remove the background. And I think for me, the thing that's really interesting is like, how can you bring, for business people, business professionals specifically, how can you bring your brand inside of your video frame? Because it can be really tempting to just set up the webcam and whatever it's pointing at is fine, and you just talk to it in your little headset. But, if you were to bring in those colors, the branding, the logos, and even the calls to action. So if you had something that popped up recently, to actually give you, you're talking about your book, for example, and on a video podcast, and someone says, oh, where can you get the book? And you press a button on the Stream Deck or on your keyboard, and it pops up with the image of your book so people can see exactly what it looks like. Maybe there's a URL, maybe there's a QR code. People can sort of find that stuff really easily. And that's something you can do in OBS, and it's not that hard. Like, it's genuinely not that hard, and I really want to help people do that more. Okay, so Saeed writes, I tried out Camo recently. Good enough if you want a branded virtual cam. I've not heard of that, actually. So if you can tell me more about that, that would be really, really interesting. I'm going to see if I can look it up online. So great video made easy. Download for Windows. Okay, I can see what it is, and I guess in some ways there are a number of different apps that do similar things to this, and there might be a great place to start. So, if you do want to actually bring things onto your camera, and I imagine this is probably easier than OBS, perhaps, probably not cheaper than OBS, but you do have all those options. And again, depending on the webcam you're using or the video camera that you're using, there may be other ways of doing that as well. But I mean, I love the idea of it. It's probably a really great place to start for a lot of people. So that it looks like they've got the green screen and privacy options, auto framing, which is interesting. Follow you around. Apple Vision. I don't know anything about Apple. But that's, that might be interesting. There are plenty of options out there. So you can check that out as well. But yeah, so I guess that's the thing that I'm sort of excited about in terms of bringing OBS to a different audience, because I know, like, all the gamers, they get it. They know what they want to do. They want to have a bit of chat on the screen. They want to actually have the gameplay. They get it, but I think the untapped audience in some ways is the business professionals. And I know Garen in MicroStudio does that. I know Saeed does that as well. So it's good that there's a bit of a movement. And I think the thing, I mean, there is other software that you can definitely use, including a lot of paid software. And I was really tempted at one point to buy a Mac and subscribe to this software. And I thought, I don't know if I really want to be paying sort of 50 USD per month, every month for the rest of time to use that particular software when this is literally free and open source. So, yeah. So Said writes, the first thing I teach in OBS is how to create a nice looking camera setup. No fancy visuals, just good framing. Absolutely. And again, that's something that you can do in some pieces of software more easily than others. And there's probably two elements of that. Like, can you physically bring the camera closer to you? And I say that as someone who really can't. Like, I literally have my camera in a teleprompter unit mounted to an Elgato key light stand at the back of my desk. And my desk is actually surprisingly wide. So in some ways, it's as far forward as it can be. And that's not to say that I couldn't make it larger or smaller in OBS if I wanted to. That's always an option. Although we talk about things looking good on camera, and I just keep looking at whatever the hell my hair is doing today and thinking, what's that about? But anyway, never mind. Can't be helped right now. All right. So I am curious, and again, I'm going to see if I can just go through some of the questions I've received on the YouTube channel. So I'll go in, manage my videos. And you can tell I don't do this very often because I don't even know where it's hidden. There we go. Okay, so someone live A3596 writes, hi there, I used OBS to record both online and in person, but I try to share these in apps such as Jane app and Zoom, and the sound won't play. How do I get around this? Okay, so it's a great question. I'm surprised I haven't answered that earlier. If you're using the virtual camera, and that's a really great thing. So basically, if you set up your scenes in OBS with yourself and your colors and your fonts and graphics and whatever, there's actually a button called Start Virtual Camera, and you can actually send those visuals out to most software that supports webcam. And that could be Zoom, that could be Microsoft Teams, that could be Restream Studio, all kinds of stuff. The problem with that, though, is it only sends out the visuals. So if you play a video in that way, you will see it. You may even hear it, but your audience won't hear it. And at that point, you kind of need to use some virtual camera. At that point, you need to actually think about using a virtual cable, which I must admit is something I've never really done. I know Saeed has done it, so maybe he would have some better insight. But I guess the one I hear about all the time is the VB audio software. So that's this one here, which you can find at vb-audio.com. And essentially, like this is a software um, thing where you can actually say, "Hey, the audio from this software goes to this output," and you can actually select that output in Zoom or whatever you're doing. But again, make sure you've got your microphone going there. Make sure you've also got the video audio going there as well. So again, it's nothing that I've really done. Okay. Let's turn this off for a second. Said writes, it drives me crazy that there are 3 pixels in the top right of your cam that aren't cropped properly. Yeah, that is annoying, and I kind of noticed that at the end of yesterday's show. So if I turn on studio mode, I'll just go to that scene. And one of the problems with this is I literally, and I've just moved it, but anyway, I'm literally just going to crop that in for today's purposes. And let's go back to, actually, let's turn studio mode off. And I don't know if that's fixed it or not, but I'm not going to stress about that too much today because I think today we're really just in the moment. Yeah, but that's literally because that's kind of the point at which the green screen ends, and I think what I've done hasn't actually helped it particularly much. So, that's annoying. Anyway, let's not obsess over that too much. We'll try and fix it in proper streams. So yes, getting back to what I was talking about though, is you probably do want to look at one of these virtual audio cables to bring that in. Again, I've never really used these. I know lots of people swear by them, and I think some of these are actually free. Like you can just download them, and if you want to upgrade, I think there's some additional support there as well. But I would definitely give that a go. Okay. So somebody else asked, is automatic caption works in all languages? If I want to change language, what is the process? Okay, so again, if we go back to OBS, and this is that caption plugin. So we do have all these different options here in terms of language, and they go on for quite a while. I don't know exactly how many there are. I guess the thing is, you do need everybody on the stream to be speaking one language. Like, I don't think it's going to be able to get a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of English, a little bit of Japanese in the one stream. I think that would be a problem. But otherwise, it's really just a question of selecting this from the drop down and then just sticking to it. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, Said writes, yes, I'm using VB audio cables for a long time, the audio monitor plugin, plus the audio monitor plugin for OBS. Okay, that's cool. I'm not really familiar with the audio monitor plugin. Let's have a look at that one. I have so many windows open, it's ridiculous, but never mind, we'll get there eventually. Here, so the audio monitor plugin. Okay, so audio, and it's an Exeltro one, which he always does really cool stuff. So essentially a plugin for OBS to add audio monitor, dock, and filter. It allows you to put the audio of an OBS source to an audio device by adding the audio monitor filter on the source in OBS. Oh, okay. So essentially, you're rerouting those to different places. That's really interesting. I might have to check that out. Okay, so this can be useful in different use cases, monitoring a source on multiple devices, monitoring audio without the delays of syncing to video, separate monitoring audio levels per source and device. And Saeed writes, the audio monitor plugin creates a filter. You can tell them each audio source where to route it. That's really cool. Like that would be genuinely useful. And Ender writes that the new version of ChatGPT voice app is pretty impressive, great for learning languages or traveling. I am curious, Ender, do you speak any Thai? Because I have a little bit of an interest in Thailand, and I see all these videos on TikTok, and they will have the same three letters, but the way you pronounce them gives them incredibly different meanings, sort of different inflections and things. So, like it's a great language. I'd love to learn it, but it strikes me as something that would be very difficult to learn. So I'm curious. If you do know any Thai, that would be interesting to hear about. So I kind of wish, I know Saeed describes himself as the textrovert, but I kind of wish we could get him back on to the stream itself and grill him properly, because he knows so much and we always learn so much from him. But I do, that was really interesting, the audio monitor one. So definitely check that one out if you want a little bit more control over where your audio is going and what you can actually do with that as well. Let me just see if I can figure out which one of these windows actually had the questions in it. I must admit, I don't think I get all my comments as email notifications, because there are definitely things in here I've literally never seen, which is kind of wild. Okay, someone did actually say that when I follow your guide, all my words come out backwards and I can't fix it. By backwards, I mean it's mirrored, so letters and words are reversed. Okay, that's interesting. And Ender writes that he speaks some Thai but uses apps to learn sentences that I use a lot. Okay, that's cool. All right. So I guess that question was literally about the captioning plugin. So let me press this button again. My instinct, and if I just start recording locally, my instinct is this may actually be a problem with the captions text source itself, because I have a feeling if you go to edit transform, I don't know if there's anything that actually reverses it in that way. I wouldn't have thought so, not from here, but like you can rotate it, which again was something I wasn't even aware of until a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure why it would be reversed, except that maybe if you're using this in the virtual camera, like the virtual camera has its own settings, and sometimes, like if you go to zoom, it'll say, "Do you want to reverse this? Yes or no?" And often the slightly confusing thing about this is you'll want it to be reversed for you so your audience is seeing it the right way, but you probably do need somebody on the other end to just let you know if that's happening correctly or not. Otherwise, I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously there are some languages in the world that are sort of right to left rather than left to right, so I don't know if that potentially could be an issue here. But I'm not seeing any sort of setting that would indicate that would be reversed. So I'm not really sure about that one. That's a bit of a mystery, but I'll stop recording here. Let's go back and see if there are any other comments I've missed. There are so many. I'm really, really bad at getting back to people with comments. Like, I will see a comment late at night and I'll think, I don't have the energy to reply to that now. I'll do that tomorrow. And then I just never do. Someone did note that it seems less accurate in French than in English, but it's a good start. Again, all these automated things, they're never going to be perfect. At least I don't think they're going to be perfect. They're not perfect right now, but they can be a good starting point. Okay, cool. There was a time when this plugin actually broke, so I just want to acknowledge that too. So if you do have an older version of this software and you go to add a new text output and you come to here and it literally doesn't give you any text sources to choose from, even though you have them in your scenes, there's a really good chance you just need to download the software, the plugin, and install it again. That was definitely a thing that happened. And you can sort of see that in the notes. It's funny. Ender wrote something a few months ago because I really was toying with the idea of getting a Mac. Ooh, Saeed knows what he's talking about. Let me do this again. So start recording. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. So the thing that Saeed has written here is nope, right click, transform, flip vertically or horizontally. So if I go right click, transform, and we'll go horizontal, then the words are back to front. There we go. That could be the problem. So if you are seeing that, right click on your source, go to transform. You can sort of, if you know which direction they're going in, you can sort of flip that back again. If all else fails and you really do mess up a source and you just can't make sense of it, there's always the ability to go to transform and just go reset transform, which has the keyboard shortcut Control R. So that is potentially what is happening here. So that's a great call out. Thank you for that, Saeed. I realized I started talking about this and didn't finish, but anyway, let me turn off that recording so I don't need to see everything I'm doing transcripted right now. So Saeed writes, are you going to join the Ecamm fam? Probably not. I have been thinking about this for many months, and I actually, and I don't, I shouldn't do maneuvers like that because you can definitely see the edges of my green screen, but I did actually buy what they call a KVM switch. And essentially the idea is to have multiple computers using the same sort of resources. So again, actually sharing monitors, sharing keyboards, sharing the mouse, that kind of thing. And I've actually got 2 of these for different rooms of my house, and I haven't set this one up yet, but I was genuinely thinking about buying a Mac Mini and just setting it up and just seeing what the Ecamm experience was like. But again, this is not something I make money out of, so the idea of spending $50 per month for the rest of the time is a little tricky. And Ender writes too, I don't use a Mac, but what they're... Okay, I don't quite get that one. Maybe if you can rewrite it for me. So so you do watch. Okay, so he doesn't own a Mac, but he does watch a number of their shows. And I guess if I'm being really completely honest, I used to hang out in a lot of those spaces with users of that software, and the minute they found out I used OBS, I was made to feel very unwelcomed, and I stopped going to a lot of them. And I think it's unfortunate because I'm sure it's good software. It's just that I don't own that kind of computer, and I'm probably not going to buy it anytime soon. So in my mind, we're all sort of doing similar things. We're just using different tools to get there. So I'd love to bridge that gap, but increasingly I think, I'm just going to try to stick in my lane a little bit more. And Business Growth Ready, which is a YouTube channel, he sort of made this joke about the OBS fam, and I kind of want to lean into that a little bit. I think that would be really awesome. I think we need to organize in the way that other software has organized. And again, it's different for OBS because there is no profit incentive in that way because it's open source software. But I think it is a really great opportunity for us to come together. So Saeed writes, same here. I'm a part of the Ecamm fam, probably one of the few OBS/Windows users, watch their shows for inspiration. Yep. And, if you send Saeed a mug, he will probably represent your brand for the rest of time. So just keep that in mind. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Saeed. That was really, really great that you could do that, that you could explain that sort of flipping of the text. That was really cool. I didn't think to look there. So that was great. Okay, one thing that is kind of interesting, and I made a little short video on it, and for whatever reason, it's gathered a bit of a life of its own. And I'm going to, again, I realize you're not seeing this. Let me share my screen, and I will talk you through this. But I'm going to actually add a text source, and I will say live link. All right, I'm gonna make this a good deal smaller, probably even smaller than that. Let's change the color. All right. So this is actually really interesting because if you do have a YouTube channel, you can actually send people this basic link, and it'll take them to a number of different things depending on what's actually happening. So if you go youtube.com/@ and then your YouTube handle /live, if you are live, it'll take people straight to that video. If you're not live, it'll actually just show the live tab of your profile, and that'll sort of indicate what's coming up. So that's a very little tip, but I think it's a really cool tip, and I don't think many people actually know about this one. So, you know, I sort of each week I do a post for the video and live streaming show on Instagram, and I can't really put in a link there. Like it's not going to play nicely with a link in the description. And I kind of, you know, and what I actually do personally is I grab the link to that video and I go into WordPress, and I've got a redirection plugin. So if you go to johnlacey.com/live, it'll normally take you to that particular video. And I just share that as sort of a shortcut. But anywhere you can actually share a clickable link and you say, like, we're live right now. And it could be something that, because that link doesn't necessarily need to change, you could sort of even schedule that ahead of time to post to different social media platforms. So that's really cool. And like, I made a tiny little YouTube short about it probably a year ago, and people are finding it and saying it's still quite useful. So I just wanted to mention that one as well. And yes, we always see Saeed in the comments in all the various places. He watches all the shows. So Saeed writes, I created a subdomain for my YouTube and redirected to my channel, shorter and easier to memorize. Absolutely. And I guess the great thing about that is, like, if you, and whether it's just a shorter URL, whether it's a subdomain, whether it's a new domain or by itself, if you describe it in general terms like community or video or whatever, if you reach a point somewhere in the future where you used to be building on TikTok and now you've moved to YouTube or vice versa or whatever, you can just update that redirection wherever it is, and people finding your old content can still go there and be redirected. So that's really cool as well. All right. Okay, so I mean, those are the bulk of the comments about that specifically. So, yeah, it's interesting because, as I said earlier, we have sort of celebrated that 100th episode on the video and live streaming show, and I don't know. I'm trying to reflect a little bit and just look back on where we started and how far we've come, and yeah, it's a really interesting time. And again, I can totally see the limitations of that green screen now. I'm sorry, Saeed. let me see if I can I'll go into studio mode and I'll do that again, because I think that's the problem with that. It's very annoying. And I'm going to have to move this somewhere else so I can resize it more elegantly. Oh, that's the background. I want the camera. Where is the camera? And the other problem with that, actually, yeah, that's the larger problem, because when I switch between... so I'll turn off the studio mode. So when I actually switch between screen capture and full screen, it resizes it with the Move plugin, and because I haven't updated those filters, that's gonna potentially still be a problem. So maybe if I go back into studio mode and I go to the host scene and I go to what I call back to normal, and I will just say get transform. Okay, that should hopefully fix that. So now if I go screen share and I go, oh, press the wrong button. It's very me. So screen share and then no screen share. Okay, so it's copying it a little bit better. I mean, there are very real limitations in terms of my green screen setup, and I've kind of made peace with it. I know some people have a lot of feelings about that, and I just go, look, if this is distracting you that much, my content probably isn't for you anyway. So have a nice day. Okay, so have you tried polls on YouTube, LinkedIn to ask for topics? I have. And again, I don't know. Like, I guess Said is always watching the show live, and I think you'll get a sense that a lot of the time the people in the audience are just friends, which is fine, but they're not necessarily there for the video content. So, and we see that especially a lot of Sam's friends from Twitch and whatnot. So, I mean, it's probably worthwhile revisiting. I might see if we can do a post on the community part of YouTube. I don't know that stuff does particularly well for me personally, but again, I don't think it hurts. I think it's worth a try. So I might revisit that as well. Next week on the show, we are going to be talking about sort of working with OBS, different scenes, different ways of working, some of those little tips and tricks along the way that, I think if you've been working with OBS for a while, you may start to take them for granted. Whereas, if you're just learning about them for the first time, they sound incredibly exciting. So there are different things that I do in terms of even just sharing the output of OBS to the teleprompter display, so I can sort of look right straight ahead where the camera is, and that can be quite useful as well. And it's funny, there was a show where Sam couldn't join me, and I hadn't set that up, and I was just so confused. Like, I'm like, where do I even look? So even on a solo one, I like to actually make sure it's in front of me. So if I do want to switch to a different scene or whatever, I can do that easily enough. So, even this, I've got the screen capture showing up on the as part of the scene now. So again, I can sort of come in here and I can see it right behind the camera as well. So I might even just say, okay, did that cookies notice? I'm doing it in the wrong place though. Got to make sure I'm actually interacting with the real thing and not the projection of the thing. But essentially I can work in that way as well. And now if I turn that off, we're back to normal, and hopefully we don't have that little bit of whatever. All right, so yeah, that's a great thing. Look, I'm probably going to start wrapping this up, unless anyone has any burning thoughts or questions or comments. But I did just want to go live just to have a go. I didn't have any content really scheduled for today, so I thought I'd just jump on and show a few things. Hey Roy, how you doing? Just doing an unprepared stream today, just chilling and answering questions and talking about things. So nothing terribly exciting, although I was taking people through the closed captioning plugin on OBS because I get so many questions about that, and I know I did a video about that and it wasn't a very good video, and I was trying to do too much at once, and I was already recording in OBS and I couldn't demonstrate things in the same instance of OBS. So in the unlikely event that you ever need to demonstrate anything in OBS, I always recommend you download a second version and run it portably. You just create a shortcut and just indicate that you want it to run portably. It's really, really useful. So that way you can sort of do things like this and go screen share. Turn that caption off. And essentially I can be in front of this and I can talk you through it. So again, I could talk you through those settings, and we could turn those on if I start recording, and we get the automatic captions, which are not perfect, but they're actually a really good place to start. And they can be the open captions, which are burnt onto the screen, but we can also save an SRT file or a text file that you can go and edit and, upload to YouTube or wherever later on. So that's a really cool plugin. I like that one really quite a lot. Let me just see if I've still got that open to show you what that looks like. So many windows. This one here is what I'm looking for. But essentially, this one is the closed captioning via Google Speech Recognition. You just download this plugin. You drag and drop a single file in there and restart it and adjust those settings. It's a great question. I guess I have to say first up, I'm not really a gamer, but in some ways, it kind of depends on what he's hoping to do and what the destinations are that he'd be going out to. And again, I should probably read this out in case somebody is listening rather than watching. So the question is, so my son needs to start streaming with OBS. Any plugins or quick tips for a gamer? Um, Again, I would probably, and I say this as someone that doesn't game at all, but essentially, if you go down to the sources, the big thing is you're going to need to capture the gameplay, and depending on the kind of game it is, there are a few different options here. So I might just turn off that caption, that comment. But essentially, we've got display capture, we've got window capture. We do also have game capture, and again, this is not something that I actually play with very often. But my understanding from reading the documentation is that if your game is being, if it's using any kind of GPU unit to play the game, this is probably the way to go because it'll effectively use those resources to capture it as well, so you won't be doubling up. So essentially, you can try this, make sure the game is running, capture with these different modes. Probably want to grab audio as well. And I think in some ways, I would probably personally set up a scene for gameplay. I would set up a scene for his video if he's going to share that and his audio. And maybe even another, well, I was going to say another scene for the comments. It probably isn't a scene. It's probably just another source in here. And see if you can capture those separately in case he wants to edit those and have them as standalone videos. But that's sort of a very big if. I'm kind of I have to guess a few things there. So I guess if you've got follow-up questions, Roy, let me know. We can certainly dig into it and have a look at that in more detail. But again, I don't play a lot of games, but my understanding about this is if you have the kind of game that actually uses the GPU, this will capture things via the GPU, and in some ways that will free up other resources on your computer. So that's probably where I'd start. But again, think about the elements that you want to have on those scenes. Again, if he's playing games for hours at a time, think about be right back scenes or, just something that can be on the screen while he's not actively playing, because we don't want to be chained to the computer all day if we can help it. And again, I guess the other thing too is depending on the kind of game and the platform he's playing on it, because it may not be on the same computer or device as the OBS itself. You may need to think about some sort of HDMI capture from I don't know, a PlayStation or whatever the games consoles are that people use today. I have no idea. I'm really not a gamer. Said writes, I'm not a gamer, but check the input overlay plugin. Okay, I'm not really familiar. So is that like that's the one with the keyboard, I think. Input overlay plugin OBS. All right. So that's this one here, input overlay. That shows the keyboard, mouse, and gamepad inputs on stream. So, if you do actually want to have these things pop up, so it'll show you what buttons you're pressing on, whether it's keyboard or that is definitely a way of doing that. Depending on the type of game, that may make sense, that may not. It's kind of up to what you're playing and what makes sense in that context, but that would certainly be a fun one to play with. To be honest, even sometimes just doing this to show people the keyboard shortcuts you're doing in tutorials can be quite nifty as well. So that's certainly a way of doing that. But yeah, just to think about what he wants to capture and bring those in as their own individual sources. Again, I think, and I don't know how old your son is, Roy. I don't really know that. Whether he's going to be on camera, on audio, or whether it's just going to be pure gameplay and sort of those comments. It's kind of up to him, whatever's appropriate there. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for indulging me in this completely unplanned and unrehearsed and seat of my pants sort of live stream. I'm probably going to go and have some lunch now. I think Saeed probably needs to go to sleep, although there's a good chance he'll be up for a few more hours because he's basically nocturnal at this point. But thank you for joining me, Garen, Ender, Roy. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but have a great week, have a great weekend, and I will talk to you again, hopefully very very soon.